Welcome, wherever you are, whatever time it is. You have chosen to give yourself this gift of deep, restorative rest. You have chosen to let go. So find a comfortable position and allow your body to feel fully supported by the surface beneath you. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to fix. Simply allow my voice to be a guide, a gentle signal that it is safe to release. And as you begin this release, consider a question that has puzzled neuroscientists for generations. What is the true purpose of sleep? Is it merely a biological necessity, or is it something more? A hidden, nightly ritual where the mind becomes its own architect, its own healer. A mystery we will explore together on a descent into the deepest archives of your own consciousness. A groundbreaking study published in Nature Sleep revealed a fascinating truth. They discovered that during your deepest, most restorative sleep, your brain activates a unique cleansing system, the glymphatic system. Imagine it as a gentle, celestial tide, a slow, rhythmic pulse of cerebrospinal fluid that washes through the neural pathways of your mind, cleansing, purifying, carrying away the metabolic debris of the day, the worries, the fragments of noise, leaving your inner world pristine and clear. But this research suggests the process is more than mere cleaning. It is curation. Your sleeping mind intelligently selects what to retain and what to release. And this thought brings us to our story, the story of a single memory. Not a memory of great drama or trauma, but a moment of pure, unadulterated peace. A moment you may have long forgotten. Perhaps it is the feeling of sunlight on your skin as a child, the sound of rain against a window pane, the weightless comfort of being held. This memory exists a single, fragile data point in the vast library of your mind. We will return to that memory and discover what the silent, sleeping mind chooses to do with it. As the logical, analytical left side of your brain processes this information, the intuitive, creative right side begins to drift, begins to soften, begins to wonder. What else is happening in this vast, quiet landscape within? Which brings us to the work of researchers at the University of Zurich, who spent decades studying bursts of brain activity known as sleep spindles. These spindles are the guardians of your slumber, brilliant, rapid neural signals that act as a barrier, protecting your precious rest from the external world. But they're also master weavers. They carefully select experiences from your temporary storage, the hippocampus, and they begin the delicate work of stitching them into the permanent tapestry of your being, your neocortex. You're drifting deeper now, deeper into the understanding that your mind is not offline. It is deeply, profoundly at work, weaving the very fabric of who you are. And so we return to that memory of peace, that neural photograph, fragile and fading. Tonight, in this deep and restful sleep, the spindle weavers have selected it. They are transferring it from short-term storage into long-term integration. That feeling of safety, of calm, is being woven into the core of your identity. You can feel it now, can't you? A whisper of that sensation, letting it echo through your mind, letting it float gently to the surface of your awareness as you descend deeper and deeper into this safe, supportive space. But what scientists at the Max Planck Institute just discovered is that this integration is far more intentional than we ever imagined. Your brain doesn't just store memories, it finds connections between them. It builds neural bridges between that ancient feeling of childhood safety and a challenge you may have faced just yesterday, subtly, intelligently teaching your entire nervous system that calm is not a distant memory. It is a living, breathing resource, always accessible, always within you. It is learning, it is integrating all while you rest. And this brings us to a historical whisper, a lesser-known rhythm of human existence. Before the artificial glare of electric light, sleep was often segmented. People would experience a first sleep for several hours, then wake for an hour or two of quiet reflection, prayer, or simply lying in stillness before descending into a second sleep. This was not considered a disorder, but utterly normal. Some researchers, studying ancient texts and remote cultures, suggest this biphasic pattern is our natural rhythm. They propose that the wakeful watch in the middle of the night was a time of incredible creativity, insight, and connection to the subconscious, a direct line to the hypnagogic state, that liminal space between wakefulness and sleep. Others argue it was merely a cultural adaptation to the long, dark hours. But the theory invites a tantalizing thought. What if waking in the night is not a failure to sleep, but a fleeting return to a natural threshold state? A doorway to a different kind of consciousness. We'll return to that doorway in a moment, because now our narrative deepens. That chosen memory of peace is being bathed in the gentle, rhythmic pulses of the glymphatic tide. As this fluid washes over the neural network where the memory is stored, it performs a miracle of emotional alchemy. It doesn't just preserve the memory, it purifies it. It delicately separates the core emotion of safety from any lingering stress, anxiety, or forgotten context that was once attached to it. It isolates the pure, calming signal, and in doing so, it strengthens the neural pathways that lead directly to it. With every beat of your heart, a little softer now, with every slow, effortless breath a little deeper now, you are an active participant in this ancient ritual of renewal. You are not just remembering peace, you are relearning it on a cellular level. Every muscle fiber letting go, every nerve ending softening, every thought drifting away like a leaf on a slow-moving stream. The body's balance is being restored, and the mind is becoming its own greatest ally. And as you drift now, deeper and deeper, you may become aware of shift. The feeling of your body may seem distant, the sounds of the room merely a part of the background music. This is a sign of profound relaxation, a sign that you are entering the deepest states of restorative rest, which brings us to the most speculative, debated theory of all. Some explorers of consciousness, drawing from the experiences of seasoned meditators and unusual neurological case studies, propose a radical idea. They suggest that a subtle, non-egoic form of awareness persists even in the deepest, dreamless stages of slow-wave sleep. Not an awareness of thought or a sense of self, but a pure, conscious presence, a silent witness to the immense inner work being done. While mainstream science maintains that consciousness as we know it dims, this theory proposes that you're always home, a quiet, compassionate observer in the vast, silent cathedral of your own mind. Some researchers suggest this could be a fundamental property of the universe, while others argue it is merely a trick of the brain rebooting. But for now, in this space, you can simply wonder and float in the possibility. And this possibility leads us to the mind-blowing revelation that connects our science to our story. That feeling of peace you momentarily grasped, that childhood memory was never truly lost. It was only waiting for a night of deep, restorative sleep like tonight, waiting for the cleansing tides to wash it clean of any residue, waiting for the spindle weavers to integrate it into the deepest, most foundational layers of your identity. The work your brain is doing right now, as you listen, as you float in this boundless space, is nothing less than the reassembly of yourself. It is taking the raw materials of your life, every joy, every sorrow, every moment of laughter, every moment of learning, and it is synthesizing a you that is more resilient, more whole, more deeply and intimately acquainted with your own inherent tranquility. So as you drift now, deeper and deeper, know this to be true on every level of your being. You are not merely sleeping. You are engaged in the most sacred act of self-creation. You are both the architect and the city being built, the weaver and the magnificent, ever-expanding tapestry, the ocean and the single, peaceful wave. And that feeling of safety you've been seeking, it was never out there in the world. It was always in here. It has always been here, being carefully, lovingly maintained and strengthened every single night of your life. You are simply and finally returning to it. And tonight, as you sleep, your mind will continue this beautiful, intelligent work. If you happen to stir or wake in the middle of the night, you can remember this feeling. You can simply take a gentle breath and know that you are safe and return to rest easily, effortlessly. Each time you listen to this recording, you will find it easier to drop into this state, your mind and body recognizing the signal that it is time to restore. And when you wake in the morning, you may not remember the specifics of this journey, but you will feel its effects. A sense of calm clarity, a residual feeling of peace, a quiet confidence that you carry within you a deep, unshakable resource. For now, the journey is complete. My voice will soon fade away, leaving you to the perfect, silent, intelligent care of your own mind and body. You are deeply rested, profoundly at peace, and perfectly safe. You will sleep deeply and soundly through the night, waking only when you are fully rested, feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, and calm. The music will continue to play, supporting your journey into deep, natural, restorative sleep. Sleep now.
Before we begin, I want you to relax. Lean back, get comfortable, and slip under the blankets. Leave the noise of the day behind, and let your mind drift with me into a long tale from the Middle Ages. A gentle story to carry you slowly into sleep.
Every step, every word. But do not confront him yet. A snake in the dark is less dangerous than one cornered. Let him believe I am blind. Vaynar bowed. As you wish. And like smoke, he vanished from the chamber. Left alone, Alara sank into her chair, her thoughts spiraling. Her kingdom faced threats from sorcerers and traitors. Yet now, the danger was within her own blood. She whispered to the silent room, her reflection watching her with accusing eyes. If Darius seeks the crown, then he has declared war upon me. Chapter 5. Whispers of the Spymaster. The night had fallen heavy upon Eloria, cloaking the marble halls in silence. Only the faint glow of torches flickered against the walls, throwing long, restless shadows. In the queen's private chamber, Alara stood before a mirror of polished silver. The crown weighed heavily on her head, though she wore no other jewels. Her reflection looked back at her, young, determined, but already touched by the burdens of rule. The door creaked. A figure slipped inside without a sound. Cloaked in black, face hidden beneath a hood, he bowed deeply. "My queen," came the hushed voice of Vaynar, her spymaster. "I bring whispers, though they are poisoned." Alara turned, her eyes sharp. "Speak." Vaynar hesitated only a moment. "Your brother, Prince Darius. He is not what he claims to be." Alara's fingers tightened against the mirror's frame. "What do you mean?" The spymaster's words fell like daggers. "He speaks of a child. His child, hidden beyond the seas. He returns not to protect you, but to prepare the way for his heir. He seeks the throne, my queen, not your safety." For a long moment, silence pressed against the chamber walls. The crackle of the torch was the only sound. Alara's heart hammered in her chest, but her face remained still as stone. "You are certain of this?" "I heard it with my own ears," Vaynar replied. He spoke to his servant of it. He does not know he was overheard. The queen turned away, her hands curling into fists. Images of her brother flooded her mind. The boy who once defended her from bullies in the gardens, the man who had vanished for years, and the prince who had returned with promises of loyalty. A bitter taste filled her mouth. Had it all been lies? Finally, she whispered, "If what you say is true, then Darius is not only my brother. He is my rival." Vaynar's shadowed face tilted. "What do you command, my queen?" Alara drew a long breath. Her voice was low, but iron hid beneath it. "Watch him. Shall I prepare your robes?" Darius's lips curled in a faint, bitter smile. "The council, the vultures, you mean? They circle already, waiting for me to stumble." Listen hesitated. "They will not dare oppose you openly. Not while the queen still holds you in her favor." At the mention of Alara, Darius's eyes flickered. A storm moved within them, something between admiration and envy. "She is stronger than I imagined," he murmured. "Stronger than the crown itself. But strength can be a danger. Listen. A queen who cannot be swayed becomes unpredictable." The servant bowed his head, knowing better than to answer. Darius rose, pacing across the chamber. His cloak trailed behind him like a living shadow. "They do not know the truth," he said at last. His voice was low, meant only for the walls to hear. "Not Alara, not Kale, not the council. Only you. Listen." The servant dared to glance up. "Yes, my lord." Darius's hand tightened around the goblet until it cracked. Red wine spilled across the floor like blood. "Tell me again," he demanded. "So I remember why I came back." Listen's voice was steady, rehearsed. "Because the child lives, my lord. The child they swore was dead." Darius's breath caught, his eyes narrowing. "A child, my child, hidden away beyond the seas. If she sits on that throne unchallenged, he will never claim his birthright." The room grew colder. Darius whispered, almost to himself, "I did not return to protect Alara. I returned to take what is mine." From the doorway, unseen by either man, a shadow stirred. The queen's spymaster had heard every word. And far away, in the darkened temples of the east, sorceress Nimera smiled when the news reached her. "Even the crown of Aloria," she said, "cannot stand when its heirs are divided." Chapter 3: The Knight's Oath. The moon hung pale above the blood-stained courtyards of Aloria. The banquet hall was silent now, save for the scrape of armor and the muffled weeping of servants as they cleaned away the carnage. Kale stood alone at the steps of the great hall, his sword still at his side, though his gauntlets were off. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what had passed. He had slain a dozen men tonight, but none of them haunted him as much as the sight of his queen, standing against the assassins with a spear in her hands. "Alara," he whispered, though no one heard. He closed his eyes, remembering her voice ringing through the chamber. "The throne will not cower." Every word was carved into his soul, sharpening both his pride and his torment. Behind him, the heavy oak doors creaked open. Alara stepped out, her gown torn and stained, yet she walked as though she wore a crown of fire. "You should rest, Kale," she said softly. "I cannot, your majesty," he replied, bowing his head. "Not while threats still linger at our gates." Her eyes lingered on him, reading the lines of exhaustion in his face. "You have already given more than enough tonight. Were it not for you, I might not stand here." His jaw tightened. "It is my duty. Your life is worth more than mine 1,000 times over." She frowned. "Do not say such things. Eloria cannot be built on the bones of those I cherish." Chapter 4: the prince's secret. The dawn broke over Eloria, painting the spires of the palace in hues of gold and crimson. Yet within the eastern tower, shadows clung like cobwebs around Prince Darius. He sat at the window, a goblet of untouched wine in his hand, his dark eyes fixed not on the city, but on the horizon beyond the sea. His jaw was sharp, his bearing regal, yet there was something haunted in his silence. Behind him, his servant Listen entered quietly. "My lord," Listen said, bowing. "The council awaits you. Shall I prepare?"
Chapter 3. The night's oath, the moon hung pale above the blood-stained courtyards of Eloria. The banquet hall was silent now, save for the scrape of armor and the muffled weeping of servants as they cleaned away the carnage. Kyle stood alone at the steps of the great hall, his sword still at his side, though his gauntlets were off. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what had passed. He had slain a dozen men tonight, but none of them haunted him as much as the sight of his queen, standing against the assassins with a spear in her hands. "Ilara," he whispered, though no one heard. He closed his eyes, remembering her voice ringing through the chamber. "The throne will not cower." Every word was carved into his soul, sharpening both his pride and his torment. Behind him, the heavy oak doors creaked open. Ilara stepped out, her gown torn and stained, yet she walked as though she wore a crown of fire. "You should rest, Kyle," she said softly. "I cannot, Your Majesty," he replied, bowing his head. "Not while threats still linger at our gates." Her eyes lingered on him, reading the lines of exhaustion in his face. "You have already given more than enough tonight. Were it not for you, I might not stand here." His jaw tightened. "It is my duty. Your life is worth more than mine 1,000 times over." She frowned. "Do not say such things. Eloria cannot be built on the bones of those I cherish." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Cale's heart pounded, torn between the knight he was sworn to be and the man who longed to speak words forbidden. He clenched his fist against the urge. Instead, he knelt upon the cold marble, lowering his head. "Then hear me, my queen. Before the gods and the stars, I renew my oath." Ilara's breath caught as he spoke. "I swear upon my life and my honor, no blade shall touch you while I yet draw breath. No crown shall fall from your head while I yet stand. My sword, my shield, my soul, they are yours until death takes me." His words carried the weight of iron, each one a chain binding him tighter to her fate. Ilara's eyes glistened, though she masked it with regal calm. Slowly, she reached down and touched his shoulder, not as a queen to a knight, but as a woman to the one who had bled for her. "Rise, Kale," she whispered. "Your oath is already written in your deeds." He rose, though his chest ached with unspoken truth. For in his heart, he swore another vow he could never utter: to love her until the stars themselves burned out. From the shadows of the courtyard, unseen, a pair of eyes watched, the gleam of Prince Darius, his lips curved, unreadable. Whether it was suspicion, jealousy, or quiet admiration, none could tell. And far across the sea, the sorceress Nemera whispered to her spies, "Strike at the knight first. Break his oath, and the queen's heart shall follow." Chapter 3. The night's oath, the moon hung pale above the blood-stained courtyards of Eloria. The banquet hall was silent now, save for the scrape of armor and the muffled weeping of servants as they cleaned away the carnage. Kyle stood alone at the steps of the great hall, his sword still at his side, though his gauntlets were off. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what had passed. He had slain a dozen men tonight, but none of them haunted him as much as the sight of his queen, standing against the assassins with a spear in her hands. "Ilara," he whispered, though no one heard. He closed his eyes, remembering her voice ringing through the chamber. "The throne will not cower." Every word was carved into his soul, sharpening both his pride and his torment. Behind him, the heavy oak doors creaked open. Ilara stepped out, her gown torn and stained, yet she walked as though she wore a crown of fire. "You should rest, Kyle," she said softly. "I cannot, Your Majesty," he replied, bowing his head. "Not while threats still linger at our gates." Her eyes lingered on him, reading the lines of exhaustion in his face. "You have already given more than enough tonight. Were it not for you, I might not stand here." His jaw tightened. "It is my duty. Your life is worth more than mine 1,000 times over." She frowned. "Do not say such things. Eloria cannot be built on the bones of those I cherish." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Cale's heart pounded, torn between the knight he was sworn to be and the man who longed to speak words forbidden. He clenched his fist against the urge. Instead, he knelt upon the cold marble, lowering his head. "Then hear me, my queen. Before the gods and the stars, I renew my oath." Ilara's breath caught as he spoke. "I swear upon my life and my honor, no blade shall touch you while I yet draw breath. No crown shall fall from your head while I yet stand. My sword, my shield, my soul, they are yours until death takes me." His words carried the weight of iron, each one a chain binding him tighter to her fate. Ilara's eyes glistened, though she masked it with regal calm. Slowly, she reached down and touched his shoulder, not as a queen to a knight, but as a woman to the one who had bled for her. "Rise, Cale," she whispered. "Your oath is already written in your deeds." He rose, though his chest ached with unspoken truth. For in his heart, he swore another vow he could never utter: to love her until the stars themselves burned out. From the shadows of the courtyard, unseen, a pair of eyes watched, the gleam of Prince Darius, his lips curved, unreadable. Whether it was suspicion, jealousy, or quiet admiration, none could tell. And far across the sea, the sorceress Nemira whispered to her spies, "Strike at the knight first. Break his oath, and the queen's heart shall follow." Part 3. The banquet shattered into panic. Nobles screamed, overturning goblets of wine as guards rushed toward the wounded soldier. Outside, the clash of steel and the roar of fire echoed through the night. Ilara rose sharply from her throne, her crimson gown sweeping like flame. "Kyle!" He was already moving, sword drawn, his voice cutting above the chaos. "Protect the queen! Form a shield wall around the dais!" But even as guards scrambled, the heavy doors of the Hall of Radiance burst inward. A torrent of masked figures surged through, assassins cloaked in black, their blades glinting red in the torchlight. The nobles shrieked, scattering like frightened birds. Some ducked beneath tables, others fled toward hidden passages. One assassin lunged straight for the dais. Ilara froze for half a heartbeat, until steel flashed between them. Prince Darius. He had drawn a curved Varathan blade, its edge singing as it cut through the intruder. With a swift strike, the assassin crumpled at his feet. Darius turned, eyes burning with defiance. "Your Majesty, stand behind me." Kyle spun at the words, his blade parrying another attacker. Fury ignited in his voice. "She stands behind no man!" Ilara, instead of retreating, seized a fallen spear from the ground. Her grip trembled, but she held it high. "Kyle, Darius, hold the line with me. The throne will not cower." The assassins closed in. Steel clashed, screams echoed. and the grand banquet hall transformed into a battlefield. Kyle fought like a storm, every strike precise, his blade carving a path through the masked killers. Darius moved with equal ferocity, his style foreign yet deadly, swift arcs that felled enemies before they could strike again. At Alara's side, guards formed a protective circle, yet she refused to remain idle. Twice she thrust her spear, her breath ragged but her resolve iron. Blood stained her gown, though none of it was her own. From the corner of the hall, Lord Vanar emerged, his face pale with fear. Yet Alara caught the glimmer in his eyes, not terror, but satisfaction. She knew then that this attack was no random strike. At last, the final assassin fell, his mask torn away to reveal the branded mark of a shadowbound, Nemera's servants. Silence hung over the hall, broken only by the drip of blood upon marble. Alara stood tall amid the carnage, her chest heaving. She looked to Kyle, his armor dented, his cheek cut. Then to Darius, his blade still dripping crimson, his eyes locked on hers. "You fight like a king," she said quietly. He bowed his head, though his voice was steady. "And you stand like one, though they call you queen." The words struck her heart, though she masked it quickly. She turned to her trembling counsel, who had emerged from hiding once the danger had passed. "See it now!" Alara's voice thundered through the hall. "This was no accident. The shadows are upon us, and still you whisper of marriage and counsels. While you conspire, my enemies strike at our very doors. I will not wait to be buried in my own hall." She lifted the blood-stained spear, raising it high before all. "From this night forward, Eloria does not bow, does not beg. We fight, and I will lead." The hall echoed with her words. For the first time, some nobles bowed with true respect, not fear. But in the corner, Vanar's smile lingered, a serpent's grin. And far away, in her lair of shadows, Nemera watched through her mirror, her silver eyes gleaming. "Let her gather strength," the sorceress whispered. "The higher she climbs, the sweeter the fall." Part 2. That evening, the palace prepared for a banquet. Less a celebration, more a mask to calm the people and assure them their queen still reigned unbroken. Golden chandeliers burned bright above the Hall of Radiance, their light spilling across marble floors, where musicians played softly. Yet beneath the music lingered tension. Nobles clustered in small knots, whispering behind jeweled goblets. Servants carried trays of wine and roasted meats, but even they exchanged wary glances. Alara sat upon the dais at the far end, a circlet of silver on her brow, her crimson gown flowing like spilled wine. To those watching, she appeared serene, yet inside her thoughts churned. Let them whisper. Let them doubt. I will not bend. Kyle stood close behind her, ever watchful. His hand never strayed far from his blade, and his eyes scanned the hall with the sharpness of a hawk. Then the herald's voice rose above the music, announcing His Highness, Prince Darius of Varathan. The hall fell into a hush, heads turned as the doors swung open. He entered with measured steps, tall and broad-shouldered, clad in dark blue lined with silver. His hair, black as raven's wing, framed a face both proud and marked by exile. His eyes, storm gray, swept the hall before settling on the throne where Alara sat. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Varathan's prince? I thought he was in hiding. Exiled, wasn't he? A traitor to his own kin. What business is he here? Darius ignored the whispers. He advanced toward the dais, bowing low before Alara. Your Majesty, I come not as a prince of my fractured land, but as a man seeking truth. May I speak? Alara studied him. She had heard of him, a prince stripped of his birthright after civil war tore Varathan apart. Some called him honorable, others cursed his name. "You may speak," she said, her tone measured. He lifted his gaze. "Your enemies grow bold. Last night's attempt was not the last. Shadows move within your own court. If you seek to survive, you will need allies who owe no loyalty to your treacherous lords." The words struck like iron upon stone. Gasps rose among the nobles. Vaynar's jaw tightened, though he forced a smile. "And you offer yourself as such an ally?" Ilara asked, her voice calm, though her pulse quickened. "I offer what I can," Darius replied. "Sword, strategy, and the truth others will not speak. Your court rots from within. If you trust only them, you will be betrayed again. But if you trust me," his eyes glimmered, hard and unyielding, "together we might preserve your realm, and perhaps mine." The hall buzzed with murmurs. Some nobles hissed in outrage. Others exchanged uneasy looks. Ilara leaned forward upon her throne. Her voice dropped to a dangerous softness. "Careful, Prince. In my hall, truth and treason are often separated by the edge of a blade." For the first time, a faint smile touched his lips. "Then I pray your blade is swift, Your Majesty, should you find me false." Silence followed. The music had faltered. All eyes fixed upon the dais, waiting for the Queen's word. Ilara's decision hung heavy in the air. To welcome him would enrage her council. To reject him might forfeit an ally she desperately needed. Her heart weighed the choice, but before she could answer, the doors at the far end burst open. A guard stumbled in, blood staining his armor. "Your Majesty," he gasped. "The outer ward. It's under attack." The hall erupted in chaos. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Court. Part 1. The dawn that followed was no dawn at all. Only a dim gray light that crept reluctantly across the skies of Aloria. The bells that tolled the Queen's coronation now rang for vigilance, warning the city that assassins had slipped past palace walls. Rumors had already taken flight like crows. "Did you hear? The new queen was nearly slain in her bedchamber. They say shadows walked through the walls themselves. She will not last a fortnight." In the palace corridors, whispers carried farther than footsteps. Every servant's glance lingered too long. Every noble's bow dipped too shallow. It was as though the walls themselves conspired to remind Ilara that her throne sat upon quicksand. Yet when she entered the council chamber, she carried herself with calm steel. The chamber was a grand hall, its circular table carved from black wood, surrounded by banners that once honored her ancestors. Now, those banners seemed like faded memories of a brighter age. The lords rose at her arrival, some eagerly, others reluctantly. Lord Vaynar was already there, seated nearest to her father's old place, his silver hair gleaming in the torchlight. His lips curved in a polite smile, but his eyes remained sharp, calculating. "Your Majesty," he said smoothly, "the council grieves for the danger you faced last night. Truly, it is a reminder that we must act quickly to restore order. The people clamor for stability, for guidance." Ilara took her seat at the head of the table, Kyle standing silently at her side, his presence like a shadow with a blade. "Then guide them," she replied, her voice calm yet edged with iron. "Let the people see that their lords remain loyal to crown and realm, not to their own ambitions." Murmurs flickered around the table. Lord Rallis coughed into his hand. Lady Miraveth's jeweled fingers tapped impatiently. Vaynar leaned forward. "Forgive me, Your Majesty, but such words wound those who seek only to serve. We must not let suspicion divide us." "Suspicion?" Ilara's gaze swept the chamber. "An assassin entered my chambers last night, Someone opened doors, removed guards from their posts, and guided them through halls known only to the palace council. Tell me, lords, shall I dismiss suspicion when treachery walks so boldly within my walls? The air grew taut. No one spoke. Kyle's hand rested on his sword hilt. His eyes lingered on each noble, daring them to protest. At last, Lord Venar inclined his head. Then perhaps, your majesty, it is time to strengthen the crown with alliances. Marriage, perhaps. There are many rulers who would gladly bind their fates with yours, to shield Eloria from further unrest. The suggestion struck the chamber like a thrown blade. Marriage. Already they sought to chain her throne with foreign hands. Ilara did not flinch. Eloria is not a bride to be sold, she said coldly. Nor am I. Her refusal sparked unease, but she pressed on. My father once told me, a true ruler does not beg for strength in another's shadow. She carves it from her own. Remember that, my lords. Venar's smile thinned, but he bowed. As you command, my queen. Yet even as the council dispersed, their whispers followed her like ghosts. And when she left the chamber, Kyle leaned close, his voice barely audible. You made enemies today, Ilara. I only revealed the enemies who already existed, she answered. But in her heart, a seed of doubt had been planted. Could she truly hold the realm alone? Chapter 1. The Coronation of Ashes. The palace slept uneasily. Guards patrolled the corridors with torches in hand, their armor clinking in rhythm with the echo of boots on stone. Yet no watchful eye could pierce the silence that crept deeper than night itself. In the queen's chambers, Ilara sat at her writing desk. A single candle burned low, dripping wax across parchment filled with trembling words. Letters meant for her people, for the lords who still doubted her, for herself. She had rewritten them a dozen times, each draft torn and tossed into the hearth. Sleep called to her, yet her mind would not rest. The memory of Venar's smirk and the noble's half-bows lingered like a thorn. She reached for her goblet of wine, but froze. The flame flickered. The air grew colder. A whisper slithered through the chamber. Little queen. Ilara's breath caught. Her eyes darted to the balcony doors, shut tight. The curtain stirred, though no wind passed. She stood, heart pounding. Who's there? From the shadows of her chamber, a figure detached itself, moving with silent grace. Dressed in black leather, face hidden behind a steel mask, the intruder's blade glimmered faintly in the candlelight. An assassin. Ilara's pulse roared in her ears. She stumbled back, but her voice rose, sharp with defiance. Guards! The masked figure lunged. Before the blade could find her, the door burst open. Kyle stormed in, sword drawn, eyes blazing. Steel clashed in a shriek as he intercepted the assassin's strike. Sparks flew across the chamber. Ilara, run! Kyle barked, forcing the attacker back. But Ilara did not run. She snatched the heavy candlestick from her desk, clutching it like a weapon. Her body trembled, but her spirit held. She was queen now. Fear could not own her. The assassin moved with deadly precision, each strike aimed to kill. Kale parried fiercely, his strength straining against the intruder's speed. The fight tore across the room, shattering glass, slicing through curtains. At last, Kale drove the assassin toward the balcony. With a cry of rage, he struck, but the blade met only shadow. The figure dissolved into smoke, vanishing through the cracks of the night as if it had never been. Only silence remained. Ilara stood frozen, the candlestick still in her hand. Her breath came fast, her chest heaving. The silver circlet had slipped from her brow, lying forgotten on the floor. Kyle turned to her, his face pale but his eyes fierce. "They will not stop," he said grimly. This was but the first. Alara clenched the candlestick tighter, her fear hardening into resolve. She bent down, lifted her crown, and set it firmly back upon her head. "Then let them come," she whispered. "I am queen, not prey, and I will not fall in the shadows." Outside, thunder cracked though the skies were clear. Far away, in the heart of her dark sanctuary, Nemera smiled, watching through her mirror. "The game begins," the sorceress murmured. "And the queen has chosen to fight." "She is too young," muttered Lord Rallis, his jeweled rings clinking against his goblet. "A child cannot command armies, nor outwit seasoned rulers." "A child," sneered Lady Miraveth, "who dares defy us in open court. Mark my words, Venar. If we do not act swiftly, she will slip beyond our control." Venar raised a hand, silencing them. His voice was low, sharp as a dagger. "She is fragile, but not foolish. That makes her dangerous. We need more than whispers. We need leverage." The mirrors quivered faintly, though no wind stirred. From the largest pane at the end of the hall, darkness seeped like smoke. A chill spread through the chamber as a figure cloaked in midnight stepped forth. The lords recoiled, some crossing themselves, others clutching their blades. "Be still," Venar commanded. "Our ally has arrived." The figure's hood fell back, revealing the pale, cruel beauty of Nemera, sorceress of the old order. Her eyes burned like molten silver, her lips curling into a smile. "So," she purred, her voice echoing as though spoken by many. "The lamb wears the crown. How quaint." One of the lords spat in disgust. "Sorcery has no place in Eloria. If the queen discovers..." His words died as Nemera raised a hand. Shadows coiled around his throat like snakes, choking him until he gasped and fell silent. "No place?" she whispered, her tone silken and venomous. "You lords play with knives and schemes, but it is my power that will break her. Or do you think your petty councils can topple a queen who bleeds with the blood of kings?" Silence fell. None dared to challenge her. Venar inclined his head, though tension tightened his jaw. "We are aligned then. You will weaken her spirit. We will erode her throne. Together, the crown will fall into our grasp." Nemera's smile widened. "Oh no, Lord Venar. The crown is nothing to me. What I seek is far older, far greater. But fret not. When I am finished, there will be plenty of power for you all, if you survive." The candle flames guttered, plunging the room into near darkness. Nemera's form dissolved back into the mirror, leaving only her laughter lingering like frost in the air. The lords exchanged uneasy glances. For the first time, Venar's allies wondered if they had chained themselves to a storm, too wild to control. Meanwhile, high above the palace, Queen Alara stood alone upon the balcony of her chamber. The city stretched before her like a field of stars, yet her heart carried no peace. Kyle had warned her that enemies would strike soon. She could feel it too, in the marrow of her bones, in the way the air thickened, as though the world itself held its breath. Her hand touched the silver circlet on her brow. It felt cold, heavier with every hour. "My father," she whispered to the night. "How do I rule a kingdom that bleeds at its very heart?" No answer came, only the distant toll of a single bell, deep, mournful, and ominous. The Queen of Ashes had taken her throne, and already the shadows gathered to test her. Part 3. Night fell over Eloria like a shroud. The palace windows glimmered faintly with torchlight, but beyond its walls the city lay restless. Taverns murmured with talk of the new queen, markets closed early, and guards doubled their patrols. Even the wind seemed to carry unease. Within the Hall of Mirrors, a chamber long forbidden to common eyes, Lord Vynar gathered with his allies. The room was cold, its walls lined with tall mirrors cracked and tarnished, relics of a forgotten age. A single candelabra cast long shadows that danced across the polished floor. Around the circle stood 5 men and women, lords draped in silks and jewels, but their eyes glimmered with ambition rather than loyalty. Part 2. The ceremony ended with silence heavier than stone. One by one, the nobles retreated from the courtyard, their jeweled cloaks dragging over the cold marble, their whispers sharp as knives. Ilara held her chin high, though her stomach twisted with unease. Inside the palace, the corridor smelled of smoke and melted wax. Tapestries that once told the proud history of her lineage now hung torn or stained, reminders of the massacre that had brought her here. Guards in dented armor lined the halls, fewer than before, their faces drawn and weary. Ilara's footsteps echoed as she walked toward the throne hall. The room had been hastily repaired, shattered windows replaced with rough boards, blood scrubbed from the floors, though faint stains remained like ghosts. The throne itself loomed at the far end, a high seat of silver and obsidian, carved with the emblems of the sun and the raven. As she approached, Lord Kale stepped forward, his armor clinking softly. He knelt, bowing his head. "My queen," he said, voice low and steady. Ilara studied him. His black hair was tied back, his jaw lined with scars earned in battles fought for her family. He had been her father's most trusted knight. And now, he was hers. "You need not kneel to me, Kyle," she murmured, her voice carrying a fatigue she could not mask. "I kneel not only to the crown," he replied, lifting his gaze to hers, "but to the woman who bears it. And I will not rise unless you command it." For a moment, her heart softened. In a sea of uncertain loyalties, his devotion was an anchor. She gestured for him to stand. As he rose, the heavy doors creaked open. A cluster of nobles entered, their robes whispering across the stone floor. At their head was Lord Vynar, a man of silver hair and sharper tongue, who had served as counselor to her late father. His bow was shallow, his eyes cold. "Your Majesty," he said smoothly, "we, the lords of Aloria, come to offer our counsel in this time of transition." Ilara descended the steps of the throne, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Transition?" she asked. "The throne is not in transition, Lord Vynar. It is mine, and the realm shall obey it." A flicker of irritation crossed his face, quickly masked by a smile. "Of course, Your Majesty. Yet a queen so young must surely lean upon the wisdom of her elders. The people are restless, the coffers strained, the borders unguarded. A council of regents could... No." Her voice rang sharper than steel. The hall fell silent. "I will not be a puppet queen, dangled by strings of men who whisper in the dark. My father trusted you, Lord Vynar, and it was under that trust he died." Gasps rippled through the hall. Lord Vynar's smile froze, but his eyes blazed with hidden fire. Before he could reply, Kyle stepped forward, hand on his sword. "Careful, Lord. The Queen's patience is not endless." Vynar bowed again, more stiffly this time. "As you wish, Your Majesty. But remember this. Crowns may be won in blood, yet they are kept only through alliances." He turned and swept from the hall, his allies trailing behind like shadows. Ilara exhaled, the weight of her defiance heavy upon her shoulders. She sank onto the throne, feeling the chill of its obsidian surface seep into her bones. Kyle stood beside her, his hand still resting on his sword. "You've made an enemy," he said quietly. "I already had enemies," she replied, her eyes fixed on the doors through which Venar had vanished. "Now I know their faces." Thunder rumbled in the distance, though the skies above were clear. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, power stirred, ancient, waiting, watching. And the young queen, crowned in ashes, did not yet know that her choices this day would ignite a fire to consume the realm. From the shadows near the palace gates, Lord Cale Durnan watched her. Clad in blackened armor, he was the last of the royal knights, sworn now to her alone. His hand rested on the pommel of his sword, yet his eyes betrayed more than duty. He saw not just a queen, but a girl forced into chains of destiny too soon. "Ilara," he whispered under his breath, though none could hear him. "May the gods grant you strength, for shadows are already moving against you." As if summoned by his words, movement stirred among the nobles gathered on the steps. Murmurs spread like cracks in glass. Voices of lords who had once pledged loyalty now questioned her rule. Some bowed deeply, others with reluctance, and a few did not bow at all. The Queen of Eloria stood tall, though her knees trembled beneath her gown. She had inherited not a kingdom, but a fractured realm where loyalty was as thin as parchment. And in the far distance, beyond the mountains veiled in mist, a figure cloaked in midnight stood before an ancient mirror. Nemera, sorceress of the Forgotten Order, traced a hand across the glass. The vision showed the young queen crowned in sorrow. "A child upon the throne," she murmured with a smile that carried no warmth. "The realm will burn, and from its ashes I shall rise." Chapter 1. The Coronation of Ashes. The bells of Eloria tolled like a dirge across the morning sky. Their sound, once a symbol of triumph and celebration, now carried the heavy weight of loss. Smoke still lingered above the rooftops, where fires had raged only nights ago, and the people of the realm gathered in silence before the marble steps of the palace. At the heart of this mourning stood Ilara Valinor, the last surviving heir of the Valinor bloodline. Barely 20 summers had touched her life, yet grief and duty had carved shadows into her emerald eyes. Her coronation had not been written in songs of triumph, but in whispers of treachery. For her parents, the king and queen, had been slain in the massacre known now as the Night of Knives. Ilara's crown was not wrought in gold, but forged in ash. She ascended the dais in a gown of deep crimson, the color of mourning in her kingdom. The High Seeress approached, carrying the circlet that would bind Ilara to her fate. Its silver gleam reflected the cloudy sky above, as though the heavens themselves doubted the crown's weight. "Do you swear?" the Seeress intoned, her voice echoing across the courtyard. "To guard the realm of Eloria, to defend its people with both steel and spirit, to keep truth above deceit, and to bear the burdens of the throne until your last breath." Ilara's heart thundered against her ribs. She remembered the night her mother's scream had torn through the halls, the betrayal of trusted guards who had opened the gates to assassins, the crimson trail that had led her to the throne room, too late to save them. Her throat tightened, but her voice did not break. I swear. The circlet touched her brow. The bells rang once more, but instead of joy, a hush fell over the gathered crowd. A queen had been crowned, but it was a coronation of ashes.